Hi everyone, thanks for coming back for part 2. In my last video, I had just gone over this verse over here in John 2:20, where the Jews had said to Jesus, it took 46 years to build the temple, and wilt thou rear it up in 3 days? But Jesus was speaking of the temple of his body. And I want to show you something interesting about actually this verse right here, where Jesus said, destroy this temple and in 3 days I will raise it up, because there's a word in here that I had pondered over years ago when I wasn't thinking anything about DNA. That's not something I had even thought of at the time, but this goes back to what I was talking about in Mark 11, where I was explaining about the colt being tied by the door in a place where 2 ways meet. And I had explained how I believe this is the imagery of DNA, and I showed this little clip. Okay, so it explains in this video how the DNA is actually split apart by this enzyme called helicase that comes through and splits the 2 DNA strands, and it creates a replication fork. Okay, so getting back to Mark 11, Jesus had told the 2 disciples to go to Jerusalem, and he said unto them, go your way into the village over against you, and as soon as you be entered into it, you shall find a colt tied, where never man sat. Loose him and bring him. Okay, so now I want to go back to John 2. And actually, by the way, 2, the number 2 is the number 11, because the number 11 represents the number 2. It represents the 2 DNA strands. So a lot of times, chapter 2 is all about DNA as well, is what I'm finding out also. But over here, Jesus is saying, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. But if you look at the Greek, it doesn't actually say destroy. It uses this word right here, and this word actually means to loose. And this is actually a word that I had pondered over the meaning of this years ago, before I had even considered this had anything to do with DNA. And at the time I thought maybe it had something to do with the dismantling of the temple, of the stones in the temple, that Jesus had talked about, that not one stone will remain upon another. And I thought it was talking about the actual temple when he said that. But that didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but it's starting to make a lot more sense now when you consider the fact that Jesus was most likely talking about DNA. And you see over here it says, to loose any person tied or fastened, bandages of the feet, the shoes, of a husband and wife joined together by the bond of matrimony. And so it's talking about a bond over here. And then when you get back to Mark 11, I'll just show you that it's the same word for loose over here. You see that it's the same word, Strong's 3089, and this one was Strong's 3089 as well, the one in John 2. So they both use the same word. It's the word loose, and it's interesting that it has the word bond over here. because when you look at this other video over here on DNA, it's talking about breaking hydrogen bonds. And so if you look at this clip, it shows how the helicase enzyme unwinds and unzips the DNA double helix. Okay, so it shows you how the helicase goes through and breaks the hydrogen bonds that attach the two strands together, loosing the two strands. Okay, so Jesus had said unto them, destroy this temple, but he didn't actually say destroy this temple. He said, loose this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. And like I said years ago, I was perplexed by this word right here and what it actually meant, and why it used the word loose instead of destroy. Okay, and there was another verse years ago that I was perplexed about as well, and it's this one right here in Luke 12:36, where it says, and ye yourselves like unto men that wait for their Lord, when he will return from the wedding, that when he cometh and knocketh, they may open unto him immediately. And when you look at this word for return, this is also a form of the word loose. It means to unloose. And so it's saying, and ye yourselves like unto men that wait for their Lord, when he will unloose from the wedding, that when he cometh and knocketh, they may open unto him immediately. And this wedding that it's talking about is a wedding that was already in progress when Jesus came at his first coming, because Jesus already came as the bridegroom, as you can see here. And Jesus said unto them, can the children of the bride chamber mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken from them, and then they shall fast. So Jesus already came as the bridegroom, but he was taken away when he was cut off, and he came to confirm the old covenant, which brings me to Daniel 9:27. So I'll go ahead and pull that up. He came to confirm the covenant when he came as the bridegroom the first time, but he was cut off after the 69 weeks, which was in the middle of the 70th week. He was cut off, but then when he comes back, when he's unloosed from the wedding that was partially confirmed, the old covenant wedding, so that bond is broken, just like it said over here for the word loose. It said of a husband and wife joined together by the bond of matrimony. So that bond was broken when the Messiah was cut off, but then he comes back to confirm the remainder of the 70th week, the remaining 3.5 years of being in the bride chamber. And you can see where it talks about that in Zechariah 11, which again, you see the number 11 here. And it says, and I will feed the flock of the slaughter, even you, O poor of the flock. And I took me 2 staves, the one I called Beauty, and the other I called Bands, and I fed the flock. 3 shepherds also I cut off in 1 month, and my soul loathed them, and their soul also abhorred me. Then I said, I will not feed you. That dieth, let it die, and that is cut off, let it be cut off, and let the rest eat every one the flesh of another. Jonathan Kleck talks about how it's a cannibalistic system, so he's going to let that be cut off. And then it says, and I took my staff, even Beauty, and cut it asunder, that I might break my covenant which I had made with all the people. And it was broken in that day. And so the poor of the flock that waited upon me knew that it was the word of the Lord. And I said unto them, If ye think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my price 30 pieces of silver. And the Lord said unto me, Cast it into the potter, a goodly price that I was prized at of them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. Then I cut asunder my other staff, even bands, that I might break the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. And then right after that, it talks about the Antichrist. It says, And the Lord said unto me, Take unto thee yet the instruments of a foolish shepherd, for lo, I will raise up a shepherd in the land, which shall not visit those that be cut off, neither shall seek the young one, nor heal that that is broken, nor feed that that standeth still. But he shall eat the flesh of the fat, and tear their claws in pieces. Woe to the idle shepherd that leaveth the flock! The sword shall be upon his arm, and upon his right eye, and his arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. And this kind of sounds like the image over here. It kind of sounds like the good part becoming the right eye, becoming like the left eye, becoming all evil, it sounds like, for the idle shepherd. Because when Jesus comes back to restore the temple, the evil half is going to be cut off and be restored with Christ's DNA, so that both halves are good. And then for Satan and the fallen angels and the Antichrist, the good part is going to be cut off, and it's going to be all evil. Okay, so this brings me back to Mark 11 and the cleansing of the temple. And it says over here, And they came to Jerusalem, and Jesus went into the temple and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. And he taught, saying unto them, Is it not written, My house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer? But ye have made it a den of thieves. Okay, so this was the cleansing of the temple when Jesus overthrew the tables. And this was 5 days before the Passover. So what Jesus was actually doing, he was removing the leaven, because it was around that time that the Jews would remove all the leaven out of their houses to prepare for the Passover. So he was removing the leaven from the temple. But this word overthrew is interesting in the Greek, because if you look at this word, you'll see that it's the word katastrepho, and this is where you get the word catastrophe from, but it's actually made up of 2 words, and the second part is this word right here. It actually means to turn over, turn under, overthrow, but when you look at this part right here, it means to turn around. Over here it says to twist, but it says to turn back again or be converted. And this is something that Jonathan Kleck talks about how you have to be converted or turned upside down, which is basically what that word means. And here's the one where it means converted. It's where Jesus said, And verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. And it's comparable to this word in the Hebrew, which is actually Strong's number 2017. And it's the word that means turning things upside down, an upset. And it comes up in only one verse in Isaiah 29:16. But I'm about out of time, so I'll have to continue in the next video. Thank you.